Good evening. It's time for yet another installment of our Internet Forum series of public lectures. It's nice to see so many people here, even though I don't actually see you. I do see the amount of people and your screen names. So it's nice to see a lot of people who are interested in this topic. Unfortunately, the professor is unavailable today, so you'll have to be content with my face. As always, we have two lecturers today. Aura Salla, who is the Managing Public Policy Director and Head of EU Affairs at Facebook, and Antti Kivelä, who is the Director of Capacity of Renewal at Sitra. For our students who want to have their credits for this course, I will now paste the password in the chat, so you can use that in my courses to record your attendance. And as always, you can ask questions in the Zoom chat, and I'll pick a few of them to present to the lecturer after the lecture. And I might even pick some of you to ask your question yourself. But without further ado, let us begin the lectures. The first lecturer is Aura Salla with the topic Impact of Technology and Social Media in 2020. Hello, Aura. How are you? I understand that you are in Helsinki now temporarily.
Yes, actually, I'm in Helsinki. The COVID situation in Brussels is actually quite terrifying at the moment. So I escaped to Helsinki and I'm here in Helsinki, in Kallio actually. And now I'm trying to share my screen, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine, thank you.
We practiced this earlier because I think it's a new normal that people are here. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see my screen now?
Oh yes, we can see your screen and we can see your first slide. So
Excellent.
Aura, please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you, first of all, having me today. I'm thrilled, actually, to give you this lecture. I will do the same thing in Harvard University in a couple of weeks' time, focusing more on AI. But here I thought that I will take a wider approach to this impact of technology and social media. And also, yes, I will focus a lot to our platform. I'm representing, of course, Facebook. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of different social media companies here. So bear with me. But I'm trying to take a little bit broader view also about the future of technologies, and particularly, of course, what is going on social media and in the EU, because EU will be the main regulator on many of the aspects here. Are we then talking about social media content, competition, or AI or data? So I thought that this will be a relevant angle to this conversation also this evening. So I made a structure available on my PowerPoint. I hope that I can change this now. Let's see. Yes, here we go. So first, I would like to touch bases on some of the ethical questions around social media and future technologies that are very much, we see it in our media, on our platforms. Also in the Brussels bubble at the moment, because I think many of you are aware that there will be big proposals coming, hopefully 2nd of December, what comes to Digital Services Act. We are expecting that will replace more or less the old e-commerce directive from 2 decades ago. So that's around that. We have many ethical questions. Also, what comes to Digital Market Act, European Democracy Action Plan, and so on and so forth. And also more general, like big questions around safety and privacy and trying to find balance here. Regulation or enablement, like should we regulate, what should we regulate, how should we regulate? And there are many aspects what comes to democracy, what comes to freedom of speech, expression, and so on and so forth. And then last part of my lecture will be about challenges and opportunities. And I will also talk a little bit about the AI and how does our company do also like what is our approach to future technologies, machine learning and AI more in general. Because of course we are doing some of our R&D work also in Europe, and many of us Europeans would like to see it even more, and me included. But and then of course I will leave some time for questions here. And but just I want to emphasize here that I'm not I will not solve any technical questions regarding your social media platforms. I'm not here to help with that. So let me start with these ethical questions around social media. First, the role of social media. I think we all followed closely the elections in the US. Here, we cannot deny that there is no role that the social media is playing, particularly what happened in 2016 and in different elections around the globe. And we as a company, we have taken this very seriously. And even though it's very clear that we are not a publisher, we are not a media as such, if someone wants to claim that we are media, I would like them to ask from BBC and CNN and Helsingin Sanomat what they think about us as media. Because I want to be very clear here, we don't edit any of the content that is on our platforms. Yes, we might label it. Yes, we might take it down, but we don't edit it. So that way we understand the responsibility that we have what comes to, let's say, elections, what comes to harmful, illegal content online and on our platforms. And we have been taking this more and more seriously. I can see already myself, like during these 6 months that I have been in the company, we have made huge changes what comes to harmful content online, and we keep doing that. We have 35,000 people working on safety 24/7, and even some technology, like we have been seeing a lot of development what comes to new technologies and like spotting different harmful content online, even illegal content and so on. But we still recognize that we need also human beings, people, to work on safety online, and that's why we are constantly teaming up with NGOs, fact checkers, independent fact checkers, doing that with us and also for us. So this so-called limited liability, that is actually a law in the EU, is something that we are working with, because as soon as we spot something and we know that it is online, then we are taking it down. So let me emphasize here that we are respecting the EU law also here, and we would like to see this limited liability also in the new DSA proposal this December. This comes from the e-commerce directive, as many of us know here. So yes, of course, what happens online and offline, they respect same laws to many extent, because there are not that many laws that are only that have been done only for digital services and online platforms like ourselves, and that's why we have been requesting this. So there is some misleading information you see many times, that companies like Facebook is trying to like hide away from regulation or not have that. Actually, the opposite. For us, it would be much easier that democratic decision makers in the EU, for example, would make rules, because no matter how good the e-commerce directive, for example, was 2 decades ago, it's quite outdated, 2020 and 2021. So we would welcome to have EU level regulation. Is it then about content? Is it then about competition, or is it then about the digital services tax, or digital tax, as they call it? So that's something that we would like to see. But I will go more deeper on this EU regulation later on. Not too detailed, but because it is so timely at the moment, I will talk about that more later on. So let me just emphasize here, when I talk about power, when I talk about democracy, that those should be in the hands of democratic decision makers, as far as anyone asks from us. But we are not trying to say that we don't have responsibility, because we do, and we take it very seriously. When Mark Zuckerberg built this company, he made it very clear that he wants to build a community. He wants to build a community globally, in a global level, and also he wanted to give a voice to people who doesn't have a voice. And yes, that many people are always telling me that, oh, you are just a private company, you want to see big revenues. That's true, we are a private company, and I think I speak on behalf of all private companies. The purpose of private companies is, of course, make revenue, make money, and succeed. But as being a successful company in today's world is not only about money. Definitely not. It's about people. It's about building that community, and it's about caring about our common values, our common globe, and also here in Europe, caring in my work also about the European Union. Because myself, I'm a wholehearted European, and even I work for American company, I still share the same values I did beforehand, and I can assure you that this company also shares the same values. So freedom of speech, freedom of expression, that's something that this company where I work, and many of social media companies and platforms are emphasizing, and I think it is a value to defend. And even if it comes with this responsibility of understanding that it might also sometimes give voice, and not so, let's say, voice that is based on facts. We speak about populism. We saw what happened last years in the United States, having a president using his freedom of speech and expression certain ways. We also see that in Europe. So I would like to emphasize here that this kind of a respectful speech, and how we all behave in civilized world, that should be the same thing online and offline. Because when you do it online, of course, it can give you a global visibility. If you think about your tweets or your public profiles on Facebook, if you think about your Instagram, you can actually have a global reach out to your voice and your pictures, and that, of course, that builds communities, certain communities. It can create this kind of a echo chambers, as we call it. So you have certain groups that hear your voice. You can even have these groups on Facebook that echoes your messages, and that can include people, but that can also exclude people. We all live in different echo chambers on our social media channels. If you are looking at your Facebook, if you are looking at your partner's Facebook, or you are looking at your mom's Facebook, it looks very different. We choose to follow different people. We are friends with different people. We are part of certain groups that echoes sometimes more, sometimes less of our opinions. And some might say that this has always been like this. It's true. Back in the days, we went to our local pub, and I think that many of us in that village or that town, we shared certain values, and that was a certain kind of echo chamber there, echoing our opinions. However, in an online and on social media platforms, you can find people from Australia and from Malta and from Texas to that same one group, and have tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, even millions of people in that group. So the speed and also the range is just huge comparing to these pubs that we saw in the villages. So in that sense, yes, Facebook recognizes this, and we see some very harmful, I would even say violent groups sometimes on our platforms. And as soon as we recognize this kind of like, let's say, racism or violence spreading, even these private groups, we are taking them down, because we understand that we have a responsibility here. And then if someone thinks there are these and these groups, and why hasn't Facebook taken these down, there comes in this limited liability regime also, that we take them down when we see them, when we get the notification of that. And yes, we are putting more resources to this all the time, but sometimes it takes time, because we have 3 billion users, and even most of them are using platforms for good reasons. Not all of them are. And this brings me to my final point here, is that in online world and in offline world, we need to remember that not everyone behaves well, and even we see that most of our users use our platforms for good. That there are always criminal attentions, there are always misbehavior, there is always violence, and that is not something that belongs to our platform. That's also how we humans are, but we are doing our very and utmost best. Then about misinformation and disinformation, I will talk about this later on a little bit more in details, but I just wanted to clarify here the difference between misinformation and disinformation. I know many of you know it already, but misinformation can be something that I'm not aware of, and I say something that is not true, and I didn't know that it's not true. It can also be like, it's not so and then intentional that I do it, but of course it can be misleading. But then when we talk about disinformation, that's something that it's intentional, and let's say it can be against of certain groups. Here, when we talk about what happens in some of the elections, and there is disinformation spreading, that is intentional, and here like it can be bigger groups doing that against countries, against certain groups, and so on. So just defining these two different things when we talk about misinformation and disinformation. However, we have a responsibility when it comes to any misleading or disinformation online. I will build a bridge to my second point here, which is safety and privacy, because of course, safety and privacy is something that I'm dealing in my everyday work, and my team and everyone basically working on Facebook, on different social media platforms. I assume that they are dealing with these safety and privacy issues more and more, and the EU is taking these things very seriously. But I would like to start addressing some things about the data, because I will talk about data also later on. But when we talk about data, we cannot talk about one category. There are different types of data. There is personal data, there is metadata, which is more like data about data, and certain signals that we use and categorize. And then there is more content data, there are more detailed data, and so on. So it's interesting to hear when some also politicians or people from the EU institutions, they speak about the data, but they don't really specify what kind of a data we talk about. There will be this new Data Governance Act coming, and also strategy on industrial data. Maybe many of you saw that President von der Leyen took this seriously in her State of the Union speech this year, that Europe needs to take industrial data very seriously. And I think it's a good thing. And also like understanding more about the EU's thinking about data localization, data sharing, and so on and so forth. But of course, data is very much in the heart of our business, and how we do our business and how our platforms work. And of course, it also plays a big role when we talk about protecting our users and how transparent we are about data on our platforms, and also how people can control their data. And I know that this is very timely conversation also in Finland at the moment, and people are worried about their personal data. And also, like, I think that owning your own data and awareness of where our data is and how we can control it is very, very timely. We talk a lot about data collection and how Facebook is using our users' data. And I would just like to start this part of my lecture saying that be aware of your data. And we have our terms and our data policy. It's open, it's public, it's transparent. Everyone can check that. And yes, we collect and use data in order to provide our products and services. And we use this data or like in a variety of different ways. We use information on your profile, news stories you like or share, and what the other services share with us about your use of websites, apps, like how you want to personalize your Facebook experience and improve it. And we also use other data from across our services to protect people's safety and security, including, for example, identifying abusive behavior and disabling accounts tied to terrorism, child exploitation, and election interference across both Facebook and Instagram. And we are not really unique of doing this. Like companies across the industry collect information and use it to develop and improve their services. If we think about Google Analytics, Google Ads, and so on and so forth. But we are very, like Zuckerberg said it already, I think a year ago in one of his interviews very clearly, that we are committed to giving people a meaningful control of what information they share on our platforms, and who with and have invested heavily, like who you share your data, how you share it, how you control it. You can really check that on our platforms, and we have really invested heavily to this kind of tools that allow everyone to do that. And before I joined even this company, I did it myself, and I went to my Facebook and my Instagram, and I really checked like everything that was there. And I think it's important to raise this awareness, because I'm more worried about users who tend to use these services without even acknowledging that they actually have this control over their data. And yes, we have now someone is asking like okay, you are not really being transparent and sharing that information. Well, that actually is not true. We have taken a number of steps to inform people like effectively and proactively about how their data is used and shared. And also like we regularly make these updates. I know that not everyone is like reading them proactively, but everything is also like designed in line with guidance from European data protection authorities. And I know in Finland and in every country in the EU, these DPAs are super aware, and they are independent organizations. And this is something that is a little bit different between the EU and the US, and something that I highly respect in the EU, that they are so independent and aware, and like we work with them constantly to update these rules. So also what is important to acknowledge here is that there are new tools to find and download and delete your Facebook data, because some people and I know that people also here and on the chat will ask me about, okay, can I really delete this, and will you still have the data? No, we will not still have the data. So when you delete your data, it is actually deleted, and you can access to everything that there is. And you can also control more and more ads that you see, and also like if you want to only see your friends or on your news feed, you can do that. You can ask, or actually our services ask, why I see this, I don't want to see this is offending me, or this is not something that is relevant for me. So it's part of the experience you are having on online platforms, that you can control your newsfeed and how you see it. And no, we cannot listen to you, and no, we cannot watch you. This is something that came in another lecture that I gave, like, people are asking like, okay, like I get this advertisement on Google and Twitter and Facebook, and I just talked about this thing to my spouse, and now it appears on my news feed. But no, we cannot listen to you. No, we are not controlling it that way. So it's based on these signals, like what kind of technology you are using, which pages you are following, like what do you share, and so on. So it is designed with these signals, and also like our ads policies expressively prohibit targeting based on sensitive personal data. So we are never using any personal data, and protecting people's privacy is really central to how we've designed all our ad system. We don't reveal personal information to anyone. This also means that we can show relevant and useful ads without advertisers learning who these users are. And let me be very clear here, if I think that this is already clear to everyone, but we don't sell anyone's personal information to anyone. If you are more interested about this, our ad preferences tool clearly explains how advertising works on Facebook. So I'm not going more in details here, but it really gives you an unique level of understanding how these things are designed. And as Mark also recently pointed, that people consistently tell us that if they are going to see some ads, like why they see this, this is not relevant and so on. So that's why we take it very seriously, and we also develop our algorithms based on what we learn from our users. So the idea is that you get the best possible, of course, experience, and based on pages you like, what you click, and for example, people who like pages about gardening and live in Spain or not space yet, so they can change that. So you can actually control your data. That's my main point about here. And also when we use any data from our partners, we require different app developers to be clear with their users about information they are sharing with us, and we prohibit app developers from sending us any sensitive data, and so no one can share with us social security numbers, passwords, or other people's personal data. So that's something that our tools immediately take down. That's not possible with our services because it's not relevant. Any this kind of a sensitive data is not relevant for us. So this brings me to this point that I want to make also, like keeping society safe and finding this balance between privacy and safety, because as you know, there are many ongoing political debates trying to balance this. And I'm taking example of e-privacy. I think many of you know of this old e-privacy directive that was, I think, formed 2002 first time and then reviewed 2009. Here, the important thing to know is that it is outdated, and many regulation we see in the EU, it is already outdated 2020. And if we think about the regulation that will now come, maybe 2 years, 3 years time, like business like ours, like Facebook, let's say Twitter, Google, it will move on so quickly that I'm afraid that these regulations will be outdated before they even see the daylight and before they are implemented. But here I would like to highlight one ongoing debate we see in the European Parliament, not so much in media, even though I think that we should see this more in media, is that 21st of December this year, we will need to take down all the scanning that I'm now speaking about metadata. I'm now speaking about these signals that we use on our messaging services on very harmful content. With this, I mean terrorist content, child sexual abuse material content, human trafficking. So this kind of a very worrying, harmful content that we see online on our messaging services, and we are scanning these signals. Because of this old e-privacy directive and also European Electronic Communications Code, we are treated as a telco company. So that means that we need to take down this scanning. Well, the member states took this very seriously, and they have asked us together with the European Commission that we would keep scanning, and they are trying to pass this interim regulation on child sexual abuse material scanning. And the Parliament is now negotiating about that. Why I'm telling you this in details is that here the debate is ongoing. There are voices that we hear that say that, you know, you scan for commercial purposes. Well, let me clarify, we are not scanning for any commercial purposes here. We are talking about children's safety. Second of all, there is like voices that say that we should not we should just give platform of freedom, like free expression, freedom of speech. We should not scan or even take down harmful things or so on, but keep our platforms as free as possible. I agree to some extent. However, I know how people behave, and there are always criminal behavior we need to take super seriously. And this is one of those things where I think that we need some protection. And we definitely want to keep our platforms safe from this kind of a behavior. So here I would allow companies like Facebook and others keep scanning this kind of a very harmful content and the signals that we see around child sexual abuse material or terrorist content. This brings me to this my final point on this slide about encryption. So even WhatsApp is an encrypted encrypted service. It is critically important to keep these services like safe, and that there is no like we are all at the greater risk of identify thief or fraud or having our private information and pictures stolen if there is no end-to-end encryption. So that's why here I would like to say that it protects our services, like billions of people every day, and even cyber attacks, hacking, identity, thieves and so on. So it is essential to protect our children and families online. So there we need to balance this safety and privacy and freedom. There are certain things where we need some balance here. And it's not easy. These are not easy questions. However, sometimes I think safety goes safety should be put first. I'm aware of time, so I'm speeding up a little bit, but I try not to speak too quickly, which I tend to do time to time. I'm coming to my third point, so regulation and enablement. So we have been hearing these even worrying voices about like protectionist voices. So let me be clear. I would like to separate European digital sovereignty and then protectionism, because these are two different things. And we even hear these voices from the Commission which worries me a lot, because what Europe actually needs is a real European single market. And I don't want to talk about the digital single market anymore separately, because all sectors are digital today, and it's in the heart of all companies basically in Europe. So we need to enable this market and finally have a real borderless single market. And what Europe needs is also free market, global market, and free flow of data as possible. So what we saw coming from the European Court of Justice last July was a worrying signal that invalidated this data flows, transatlantic data flows, but also with a question mark on access to data from the EU to third countries. And this is very worrying. I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm not talking about only transatlantic data flows. I'm talking about access to data in UK or India. So here I would be strong advocate also about free market and global market. And let's see how this will be now after Biden administration takes the office in the US. So now talking about this proposal that will come from the EU this December, so the Digital Services Act, the Digital Market Act, and European Democracy Action Plan. Here, just a couple of points about, for example, competition. We hear Commissioner Vestager saying about these blacklists and grey lists of companies in the EU. However, I would like to point out here that we need to think about market, and we need to also like split some of the things in the companies like Facebook shops or Facebook marketplace. Here we see that we are competitors with let's say eBay or Amazon. But if we talk about Facebook feed or Instagram, there we talk about like competition between Twitter and Facebook or other social media platforms, right? So I would not just categorize these gatekeepers as companies. I would rather talk more about market. So building these European digital champions, we need to see more enablement, because we all want to see these European digital champions. But it should not be protectionism or sovereignty doesn't even mean that. We need to be aware, we need to build resilience. Yes, safety is important, but enablement is the one that will help these European digital champions more. And then when we talk about content regulation, here defining disinformation, misinformation, what is legal, what is unlawful, what is harmful. This is very culturally binding, like in Finland, in Germany, in Malta, or in Ireland. Hate speech can be determined in very different ways. So defining these terms will be very difficult task, but of course, as a company, as Facebook, we welcome EU level regulation here, because it will make our work much easier. We don't want to be arbiters of truth here. We want to see this coming from the democratic decision makers. Being aware of time, I will conclude and take some of your questions next. With these slides talking about challenges and opportunities and future of technology. So I already said something about data localization here. So for example, Facebook and Google also, we have data centers in Europe. So it's no, like, let's say it's no problem for us having like a data in Europe. We have 25 million companies using our platforms only in Europe. So we are helping many SMEs, startups, different industries with our data, and we are teaming up with different universities. I think 12 universities in the EU to have access more to our data. We work with researchers, NGOs, and so on and so forth. So we want to really be part. This is not an advertisement, but we want to really be part of the solution. But we welcome really open and engaging conversation, and that's something that why I'm also here this evening. That also tackling some of the misleading information there might be. I wanted to talk a little bit about AI and what we are doing there, but unfortunately we are running out of time, and I would love to have a couple of questions. So maybe I will leave it there, and if you have maybe just two, I will still 2 minutes, because like we really much welcome these proposals that the Commission in their white paper about the AI have said, because for us it has been interesting. In Netherlands we have had this great opportunity to use this kind of a regulatory sandbox and test new ideas. We hope to see this all around Europe, because our data is very particular, and that's why we want to use it for Europe to benefit also for this data and experience that we have on machine-to-machine learning or in AI in general. And we urge that any new AI regulation should build upon the requirements that already exist in the GDPR, and to provide greater legal clarity, and we would really much like to avoid any duplicative regulation, because I would just finish saying that enablement is something that we want to see more, because that way we can have these European digital champions and future technologies to flourish. Sorry for speeding up in the end, but we are running out of time. I don't know if I'm still allowed to have some questions, but I would love to answer to some of your questions.
Yes, thank you, Aura, for your lecture. And we do really have a few questions in the chat. And Carolina Mejia Lopez, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name too badly. Would you like to ask your question yourself?
You did pronounce it correctly, Juho. Thank you. I was wondering, do the regulations, the European regulations, apply to our users worldwide? That means, do they apply the same? Do you apply the same protections even if you are not forced to do so?
So I'm not sure I understand your question correctly, but of course we respect even now the code of practice, for example, that is not binding regulation coming from the EU, but we wanted to sign that, and we were one of the first companies signing the code of practices on misinformation, and we went beyond that, and we have been really working with national authorities, for example, what comes to COVID-19 misinformation, disinformation, vaccines, and so on and so forth. So even where we don't see binding regulation, we go beyond that, and we have our own community standards. So those are the rules on our platforms that we respect, and we would like to see more regulation coming from the EU that is binding. But if it's not binding, if it's only like even communication, we would like to follow that.
All right, thank you for your answer. Dennis Marttinen, would you like to ask your question yourself?
Sure. So yeah, I've read a lot about this Facebook purchase of the VR headset company Oculus.
Yeah.
And now the latest change that Facebook has rolled out is that you require a Facebook account to use the physical hardware device that the customer has paid for. I would like to know what is the reasoning behind this change, because without having a Facebook account, or when the Facebook account service, the Oculus service in that is deprecated, the entire headset becomes unusable. It is essentially e-waste.
Yeah, it is because we are a family of apps. So same thing with, of course, Instagram and Facebook and so on and so forth. We want to make this experience as as good as possible for all our users. And of course, for us, it's easier to develop our products if we can use this kind of, let's say, data portability to develop our tools and practices on all our family of apps. So I have learned also very quickly that we want to use this, keep this family very close with each other. I understand your worry completely, and I will take this forward also. But yeah, that is our policy at the moment.
All right. The next question would be from Carl Boström. Would you like to ask yourself?
Sure. So I've recently watched a documentary called The Social Dilemma. I have a couple of questions. The first one would be, have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen it.
You have seen it. Do you have any comments on it? Any thoughts?
Well, I think those are the questions that we see on different media all the time, and so nothing really surprising or new there.
Has it sparked any change within the company?
This particular documentary, we are not changing our policies. Yeah, we are not changing our policies according to one of the documentaries. We are changing our policies so that our platforms are as safe as possible and as user-friendly as possible, because we also recognize that if our platforms are not something that our users enjoy, then we need to change our policies, and we are doing so. And also, if our platforms are places that companies doesn't want to do their business, we need to change our policies, and we are doing so. So I would always say that our users are number one priority for this company, and that's why we want to keep our platforms as safe and our rules as transparent as possible.
You did say that you're trying to make your platform into something that the users would enjoy, but one of the issues raised in that documentary was that users are enjoying the platform, but that is not necessarily good for the users.
Well, I would also address here that most of our users use our platforms for good, as I also mentioned earlier. And then, of course, there are always some very worrying signals from society, online and offline, that we need to take very seriously, and we are taking them very seriously. Online and offline. And if there are any misbehaviors, or we understand that there are even some groups that we need to then take a hard course and take them down, we are doing so. But most of our users are actually using our platforms for good. But yes, there are always some misbehaviors.
So I'm not really talking about misbehaviors by users, but rather the recommendation system. So one of the examples brought up, if you are, say, a new mother and you are traveling through groups about how to raise children and so forth, one of the things that get recommended, I don't know if this is still the case, were, for example, anti-vaxxer groups.
No, that's not the case anymore. So as soon as something is alerted to us, something like this, for example, and what comes to, for example, vaccines at the moment, we have been teaming up with authorities in member states and in the EU, and we are taking these kind of algorithm behaviors down. So I hear your worry, and I know that where you are coming from with this, and we are doing our very best to tackle this kind of a behavior of algorithms on all our platforms. Okay,
that was actually my first question, which turned into three through follow-ups. My second question was, are you aware of the research by, among others, Jonathan Haidt, on how social media is linked with depression and anxiety, primarily among teenage girls? Any
yes,
thoughts?
I am aware of that, and we are also taking this very seriously, and we have done many changes to our algorithms, and also how we recognize certain groups. We have teamed up with NGOs, we have teamed up with different researchers, communities. We are doing this locally, not only in capitals and not only in big cities, but also in regions. And for me personally also, this is something that I'm taking very seriously, and I will do my utmost with my team and with my country managers to address this, not only with technology, but also from human to human.
Thank you for all the questions. Thank you, Aura, for all the answers. And I can see that there would be discussion, essentially forever about this topic. So if you have the time and if you want to, I would like to invite you to participate in the chat during the next lecture. But we unfortunately have to go on. Well, fortunately for everybody who wants to hear from Antti Kivelä, and I certainly do. So we will have to move on, and the next lecture is Antti Kivelä with the topic of the future of data economy in Europe. Hello, Antti, how are you?
Okay, thank you for inviting me here, and I like to speak about the data economy in Europe and what's going to happen in future, and couple of background idea about Sitra and how we are here in data economy and what is our position here today. First of all, we have been in data issues. I especially speak more and more about the data, not the services, because there's two different angle or the ideas here that there's a data and also there's a services which are in our mind they are two different things. Salla mentioned that you are doing you're helping Europe by your data. I try to explain in this my presentation that because that's our data which has been collected and how it's used today, and we have been investigating that quite a lot of last 2 years, and I have some examples about that. But anyhow, the Sitra is been in this data area for let's say 10 years. One of our first proposal to the Finnish government about 7 to 8 years ago was that we should take the Estonian X-road system to use in Finland, and that is now valid, and the Estonia and Finland are the first countries which we are running the same data exchange layer X-road palveluväylä in Finnish, and then you can see also the Suomi.fi, which is the one of the outcomes of that project, and so we have been doing this kind of data exchange issues for a long time. Now, in last spring, the Commission asked Sitra to be coordinating the European health data space planning session, and now we are doing that together with 26 countries, 22 countries from EU, and 4 other countries, and we are now in that stage that we are planning that how to create this health data spaces or the chains, how we handle the data in future in that area in Finland. Also, we are going to announce in next week that we are going to be also the Gaia X, which is the proposal to build this kind of European data and infrastructure issue for handling the data, and the Sitra is going to be the hub for that in Finland, and inside the Finland and outside the Finland in that area, so that we are quite familiar in these data issues. But what I'm going to present today is that how the existing system is working, because Facebook, Google, as all those which was mentioned, they are basically free for us. But the issue is that data has been collected through these systems, and now the data is used, and they are making money for that, and in that sense we can compare the data industry as we see it today is quite new. It's about 10 to 15 years old, and it's always when the new industry areas are growing, the first comers are taking the market, and the regulator is coming a little bit later, as I said that the regulation is usually a little bit late, and it might be so that it's not even catching up to the system. But if we compare this data economy which is happening today to the financial sector or the stock market about 40 years ago, in Finland, I was working in the financial sector in those days, in 40 years ago. The stock market was inside trading. It was very common way of doing things, and it was local. It was not allowed to make investments abroad Finland. And in 40 years' time, we have now developed the worldwide stock market system, and real time we can make everything from home, and everything is working perfectly. But there's a lot of regulation. There are different kinds of self-regulation. There is a regulation. There are different kinds of bodies which are controlling the system, and you are out of the business if you are not following the rules. And this kind of similar situation we need in future in data industry also. And today that this is a wild west in using our data in a certain way, and I explain what I try to describe here. So let's go there, and let's about in about 2 years ago we make a survey in 4 countries, and there's a results from that survey, and the lack of trust for the service provider is the one thing that people don't want to use more and more digital services. We have this case in Finland now, which is also making the same situation in Finland, but that was the time about the Cambridge Analytica and everything that. But you see that the people are not trusting the system. We need some kind of trust to this system, and that is one issue. We also asked that who is, what is the way of how the data is used, and what is the way to do that, and consent is this system, and there's also the results of that. We also asked them that should we have this kind of self-regulation, because now we have the situation that every data collector, which we have, Facebook, Google, Helsingin Sanomat, that they are collecting. I asked that how many rows they have information about me in Helsingin Sanomat. There was 35,000 rows of data about me in Helsingin Sanomat. So how they handle that? Of course, there is those long legal description and legal stuff, but who cares about that? Who is going to read all those things? So that we think that we need some kind of general rules, some kind of regulation that the people can trust and see how the data is handled and making the services to us. So in this investigation which we have done, we see that there's no way to see how the data is circulated, and I will come back about the GDPR and how it is, what is its roles today. So, but we made that kind of investigation that how the data is flowing in different in this space. It was said that Facebook is not media. It's not media. I agree about that, but it's the part of the media system, and I explain what I mean. That as you see that there was this kind of fun Finnish journalist, and we had test with her, and there you can see in the middle what kind of services this journalist used. There was Facebook, Google, YouTube, Spotify, S-Pankki, Taxi Helsinki, Yle Uutisvahti. When this person used this phone, data was developed to 135 actors, and GDPR. We sent a GDPR queries to Facebook, Twitter, and Google, and we see that was a different story. And total 28 website application sent data to 39 advertising technology related services, and 26 of those were located in US, 11 in EU, 1 Norway, and 1 Canada. But what is, I will show you a little bit more about Google's DoubleClick, which is collecting data from all of those places, so that in back of this system, that Facebook say that they are keeping their data safe, and I can delete my data from there. Okay, that's fine. But already when I'm going to the one, let's say Ilta-Sanomat or Facebook, already in that stage, data has been transferred to different places, and I can't see those. And when I delete the data in Facebook or somebody else in Helsingin Sanomat, it's not deleted in these other places, so that my profile is already, or the information about my profile is already transferred to different places. And then that's why this is huge business, and this is the part of the media system, because this information is then sold to the people who are putting the advertising to our system, and then it goes around again. So this is the student, no teenager from school, which is used Chrome, Outlook, Office, Clash Royale, and Subway services. Okay, you see that where it went in in United States 33 times, Europe 8, Norway, Russia, and Canada. And we also noticed that there's this kind of free, basically everything is free, but in this space, but free play games, and then the game's only purpose is collecting the information. So this is very crucial picture. You can see those as mentioned, these web pages or services which was mentioned in the left-hand side. So and there's in the right-hand side are those places where the data goes. And there's one is the New Yorkers pages where you are, and then you can see that the DoubleClick, what is here is Google's mainly owned by DoubleClick, which is collecting. It is that kind of company which collect information from everywhere and then sells that information to the advertisers and so on. But DoubleClick is so clever today that even if you are going to different IP addresses, they know that you are you, so that it's collecting so much information. And then, as you see, nearly everybody in this business is sending information to DoubleClick. But there's many other places that where the information is going. And even from Finland, if you are going, let's say, the Talouselämä or Ilta-Sanomat, and this kind of issues, it goes to US and some European companies, and then it's coming down again. What is very important that most of this information which is collected from us is going to US, and basically it's free of charge, so that we are changing our data to that services. But the data is going to the big US companies, and they are selling that information back to us. But and in that sense, we in Europe, we are today in this kind of data colonialism stage in developing this market and data economy, that the data is collected here and it is selling back to us very good price, so that we are not benefiting so much about that today. Okay, this is we had about 6 person. There was 1 person from Finnish Parliament, but basically the picture is same from different kind of test persons. There was 1 parliament from 1 journalist and a different kind of person, but you see that the case is usually the same where the data is going. So my point is that when we are in this stage that we started this kind of business models about 10 to 15 years ago, this is the very young market, but now it's the time to make the new rules, and that the rules are coming now. There's a lot of debate in Brussels. There was leaks about the documents last week in Brussels. What kind of legislation there is coming, and our point has been always been that to separate this data from the services and IE, and the citizen must have a little bit more transparent, and they must know where the data is, and they can change the data for the services as we do today. But today we do that way. I show you, we can't see what is happening there. in New Yorker, before you go to the New Yorker's page, and before your information is before you see the page is happening as follows. I will show you. Okay, you are going to New York. You get this long list of lawyers texting about that, and you say that okay, I accept these cookies, whatever, and then before the information is coming, there's an auction about what you are doing. There is also that list what is collected about you or your profile. It's not basically you, the profile, and this profile is DoubleClick and all other companies' background. They are selling the information. Then the auction is going. It takes about a couple of milliseconds, and then when the New Yorker's page is coming to your screen, the advertisement is there, and best matches what have been doing here and who has paid the best price gets that what you see. At the same time, 56 parties in this New Yorker's case get the information according this legal document, and 18 of those are advertising and profiling. But according to the list which we wrote through, that there was 280 parties involved in this legal document that who could have this information. And then DoubleClick is one of those. DoubleClick is this cookie sharing platform and system, and there's about 18. Okay, that was the story about that, how it works and what we can't see today. But now the regulation is coming on board, and before the GDPR, that was the black box. We didn't know anything about that, what is happening there. Now, where we are now, GDPR gives us a small hole to the black box. We see something, but very small. And then as I explained, it's not covering that the whole system. There's so many things happening behind the walls. This one company can say that, okay, we are strict, we are doing that, but there's so many parties in where the data is going that you can't see. And even if somebody, let's say Helsingin Sanomat, deletes my data, the data and my profiling is so many places that it's already gone. But what we are in Sitra doing, and what our aim and goal is that we see that in future, or 5 to 10 years time, it's like this financial business in past that it will take time, and it will take a regulation and then different kind of new issues and so that we have a fair data economy. We see that it's fair. It's fair for the citizen. It's fair for the companies. It's fair for the society. We must take account also that the data which is collected, these companies, mainly from Europe to US, the data collection is in that way because we are transferring that to the services. The data which we are sending to there, which is valuable, because they are doing so much business about that. The raw material data it's not taxed, or the society gets nothing about that. We just send the information. Individual gets something, but society gets nothing about that. The data which is sent as a raw material. And these are the issues that we must think about in future, how to handle the situation. And I emphasize that data is the issue. It's not the splitting as US they are doing, thinking about that the Alphabet should split or Facebook should split. in vertical way that the different services should split, but we think that the split must be done so that the data is a different story. Services and IE and all those services, we need a competition to we need new ideas, the innovation in that sense. But data must be handled proper way, and this is a different story and now when they are bundled together, we think that it's not the way in the future. We must see the data as a different, as a raw material, and the citizen must be involved in that more and more about the handling the data. I was a little bit, I said that already, but saying that Facebook, or Salla say that our data, I understood that it is Facebook data, but I'm not sure that of course they have collected data, but it's partly my data. So that because it came up quite many times in speed that it's our data, but basically it's partly I have a certain rights to that data. It's not only Facebook data, it's also partly my data. There is this GDPR, as you try to explain in that picture, that GDPR is a starting point for the regulation, and now there's a lot of new things coming, and I think that we need much more discussion about that since Commission is doing work in this space now, and then there's a lot of regulation proposal coming out of the Commission, but now is that how we see the European values of data is what is the our attitude to data is that it's who is taking that, and what is the individual's role. That we see the China model where the individual don't have any individual doesn't have any role in handling data. In US, companies has been running that system that they have rights, but what is the European solution to handling the data, and that is crucial, and it's the legislation in European level is going to happen in next 1 or 2 years time, the lines where we are going, and that's why it's very important to discuss about these issues today. There you can see in the slide what we think about that about what is the GDPR and what is the pay data economy, what is the individual's point of view from our point of view, and these are the main points which we think that should be discussed. There's also and then we see that the right of the data portability is the key issue that handling the data. I give the example about 15 years ago. The Commission thought in those days that money must flow in Europe, so the SEPA directive came invalid, which was single European data, single payment area, SEPA directive, and according to that process, the IBAN account system was established, and now the money is flowing through the Europe in 3 days. So the Commission made the directive, and then the industry made the money flowing system IBAN, and now everybody is happy about that. I think that's quite a similar system we need of data. That we should think that it is possible to build the right of data portability, and we can build a system that where the data can be transferred from let's say that my data which I have right now according to GDPR, I can take my data from Helsingin Sanomat and I can transfer that data to the Maaseudun Tulevaisuus, or I can take my data from Google and I can transfer that. I can download that data, but I can transfer that to other services. But it's so complicated today that we need that kind of general platform system for transferring that data. And I think that this is the issue that we must concentrate in the future, that because if we have data available, all the data which has been collected is there today. But if I can give the access and consent that, okay, you can, if you have a good service for me, I can give the consent to you or license to collect that data and make the service to me. And now that is the one of the main idea which we have been thinking in Sitra about how the future will be in data economy. We are not so interested about that services and these kind of things, because we need that the raw material must be transferred easily. No, there's a couple of issues about that, how I can ensure my privacy, and there's a lot of these issues that what you can do today, but and then we have Sitra also this kind of digiprofiilitesti Sitra.fi, where you can see and if you go there and if you do this test, you can see what kind of people you are and what is your attitude to data, and there's also some hints what you should do according to the profile what you get about that test. So that was my presentation about data and how we see that, and if there's any question, I'll try to answer to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Antti. That was certainly very interesting, and it's nice to see that this area has been researched here in Finland as well. I think I have seen a few studies made abroad, but I haven't seen anything as thorough in Finland yet.
Yeah, there's a couple of more information, and mainly also in English, but also in Finnish about this. And everything I mentioned here is published and it's available in our website in Sitra.fi.
Good to know. Good to know. We don't have at the moment any questions in the chat, so certainly if you do have a question, it's now is a good time to type one up and also maybe ask one yourself. How big is this, Antti, in Sitra? How much of this kind of research do you do?
We just about 3 weeks ago, the Sitra's board made a decision that there's 3 areas, as I mentioned. Handling and this fair data economy is one of the key issues which we are running now 4 to 5 years ahead, and at the moment we have about 20 people working in this area, but we are going to rise that to about 35 to 40%. So that it's one of our main activities for coming years.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And as we are well, virtually, but still in the university at the moment, one of the questions I absolutely need to ask is, would this be an employment opportunity for our students?
Yes, definitely. At the moment we have open position in this area also, and we are keen about that. With, let's say, in half a year's time, I think that 5 to 10 people we are hiring for this area.
All right, that's good to know, and certainly something that I think quite a few of our listeners will have liked to hear. Thank you, Antti, and thank you also to Aura Salla, who I think already had to leave, and thank you, of course, to the audience for participating. And I think this is it for this week. So we will see you in 2 weeks for the last lecture in this series, and of course, hopefully in future years as well. See you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.